All right, is Al Jazeera trying to smear a great American athlete? The network has now accused Denver Broncos quarterback Peyton Manning and other NFL stars and baseball stars of doping in a brand new documentary available online right now. It alleges Manning received human growth hormone from an Indianapolis clinic while he was still with the Colts battling back from a series of neck surgeries. The football great is adamantly denying it.
Disgusted is really how I feel, sickened by it, that I'm not sure I understand how someone can make something up about somebody, admit that he's made it up, and yet it somehow gets published in a story. It's defamation, and it really ticks me off.
Well, former NFL quarterback Joe Theismann on Fox & Friends this morning is coming to Peyton's defense.
I'm quite confident, matter of fact, I'm very sure that he didn't do it. They didn't have anything to do with it. He understands the pain. He understands the price if he does do it. You're talking about a storied career. He's not going to throw it away. To me, it's just something that somebody said, and it's unfortunate that Peyton's name has come up in it.
Well, that's how he feels. That's what he hopes. Tom Brady also on Peyton's side.
He's been one of the best players to ever play the game, so nobody has more respect for Peyton than I do, and everything that he's accomplished, I fully support, Peyton. Truthfully, I don't put much into anything. I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of support. I have a lot of feeling. He is the same.
And you know what? I will say it flat out. He's from family, football royalty, sports royalty. His family is synonymous with integrity and values. And I'll tell you, if this is me and they accuse me of using HGH, or in our business, let's say, being on the take from a campaign is the only analogy I can come up with. If someone accused me of that, I'm calling 1-800-Kimberly-Guilfoyle, and we're going to sue this thing. We're going to court.
So you want
Kimberly,
me to retire and go back to law? Okay.
What would be the hesitation of him just going ahead with a lawsuit, a defamation?
Great question, and this is why I think he will not sue. He's using terms that suggest that he'll file a civil lawsuit against him by saying that they have defamed him. All right, but if he does that, then the other side is able to get all kinds of discovery, get documents turned over, and go on a field day, which is not really in Peyton's interest. It doesn't mean that he's, not innocent. I take him for his word. I mean, again, you have somebody like Tom Brady coming out on his behalf. You have somebody like Joe Theismann. I'm sure others would. All football
They're
greats
just
like
famous.
Montana.
They're not experts, though.
Name it, any of them. Well, nevertheless, but they have played the game. They know him. They know the family. You see the family eating together. They're about as wholesome as you get as the cover of the Wheatie box. Okay, they're good to go. And this is a guy who no one's questioned his integrity, his capability. It's not somebody who's one-shot wonder, had one good season. He has consistently been an excellent, outstanding, one of the best in my top 5 players, football players and quarterbacks. No, you don't sue. If you sue, then you're going to drag this whole thing out. It's Al Jazeera. Just throw that out there.
Right.
It's not Fox News saying it.
Okay, Catherine, do you see this issue? You might not be the biggest sports fan, or you might be the biggest sports fan, but Peyton Manning's been hosting SNL. He has maybe every major endorsement of every major company on the planet. You watch him on TV right now, and he is obviously upset. But we've watched Alex Rodriguez deny it on 60 Minutes, turns out to be true. Mark McGuire denies it, turns out to be true. Sammy Sosa, Lance Armstrong. I can't name Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds. They all deny it, and it turns out to be true. This guy might be telling the truth, but can you blame the American public for being skeptical?
I don't think they're really being that skeptical. I think Peyton Manning is basically like the closest thing that we have to like a Jesus of football. Everyone loves Peyton Manning. Even if you watch ESPN and see how they're talking about this versus how they were talking about what happened to Tom Brady, they had people on there saying, I don't know, I don't know. All of ESPN right now is poor Peyton Manning. He's the best. How dare anyone say this? That's a very good indicator that if people have any reason not to believe it's true, they're not going to because they don't want to.
And Jillian, the other thing is, again, the wife, Mrs. Manning, Ashley Manning's involved because all the material is mailed to her, evidently these prescriptions. There's only 3 things you can get HGH for. One is a growth problem, one is HIV issue, and the third one is for some type of disease that you're born with, would have been taking your entire life. So there's no reason to get the prescription for it, but again, his family's involved now.
Yeah, and that's kind of the ugly part, the unfortunate part. In the other cases, like Tom Brady, the most recent in football, we didn't see the family get dragged through the mud a whole lot. And I see that that's probably what's going to happen here, especially if there is a lawsuit. People are going to open up the case of worms, look into everything. For me, I don't really have an iron in the fire. I could care less. I prefer talking about Tom Brady just because I have a crush on him.
Right, and he now knows for the first time that you are interested in him.
Your move, Tom Brady.
Your serve.
But, you know, it's just a depressing story. No one wants to see another American athletic idol fall, you know, and so I hope it's not true.
It's an anti-aging clinic that's involved. The guy or anti-aging clinic, the guy who runs it says, listen, all this stuff is not true, but the accusations in the surveillance video, it's shot secretly. The guy is pretending as if he's a customer. He's a former track athlete. And it's shot from basically, it looks like his hip or his thigh. And he's talking over the course of 6 days about giving this stuff to half the Packer team and other major names like Ryan Howard of the Phillies and, of course, the biggest name, Peyton Manning.
Well, so here's the question. Because Peyton Manning hasn't addressed the fact that, I mean, it seems like he hasn't said his wife didn't receive these, right?
Right.
So that's the part that seems a little suspicious to me. Unless there's something else that she could have been receiving this for. Is there anything she could have been receiving this for?
Not according to the 3 bullet point description. But I want you to guys hear this, Kirsten. I want you to hear what they have said since the controversy and the denials happened. Here's what the spokesperson, Deborah Davies, said. Listen.
How much growth hormone was shipped to his home in Florida, to his wife Ashley? What were the dates of those shipments? How much money was spent on that growth hormone? And growth hormone is a very, very restricted drug. There are only 3 very serious medical conditions for which it can be prescribed legally. If it is not, then the doctor who prescribed those drugs has actually committed a crime.
Yeah, I mean, so that's not very good, right? That doesn't sound good. At the same time, what doesn't add up to me is that then they say that they were sending them to the wife because they didn't want to send it to him, as if no one's going to connect him to his wife.
But Roger Clemens
that doesn't really make sense.
It's not as the coyest thing I've ever heard.
Guess what? Unless you have somebody coming forward to say that they injected him or saw him doing it, so unless the wife's going to turn against him, we've saw people do that, trainers, etc. They're not going to have any proof to tie it together to say that he, in fact, used HGH.
But doesn't he need to come out and address the fact that his wife was getting them and say why?
I think that has to.
That may be the
follow-up.
next step. Depends on how far.
And then the guy who made the accusation comes out in a 59-second, so it looks like surveillance hostage video. Says, "I lied.
Right.
Got to go. I was traumatized because my fiance died." I don't know how one thing has to do with the other, and he certainly didn't look traumatized in the car for 6 days. All I could say is I hope it's not true, because Peyton Manning is the icon you could tell your kids to look up to, as is Eli, as is Cooper, as is Archie and his wife. That's my hope.
A great family.
Right. Really a bummer what happened to Brett Favre. Don't want it to happen again.
Right. That's a very good point, but he does do a lot of commercials, and most of them have to do with shaving. All right. Hey, let me tell you what's coming up next, unless you guys have a different rundown at home. Next, who is winning the war on terror, us or the terrorists? Plus, President Obama's former defense intelligence chief tears into the president for downplaying the ISIS threat. All this when The Five returns.